I sing for you on this day. As sunlight surrounds me, then the night begins to play. I wander through it all, my heart so full. I wander through it all and see. Oh, oh, I sing for you, extraordinary you. Your light surrounds me, your song enchants me. I wander through it all, my heart so full. I wander through it all and see. Thank you.
She is an ordained minister and has been since 1998. She came to ministry after 25 years of corporate and entrepreneurial experience. Her background includes extensive experience in sales, marketing, television, radio advertising, and event production. She is highly productive. In fact, part of my essence to teach her is how to be more slovenly. So we balance each other out nicely that way. You may recognize her from, if you got the Creative Thought magazine, she wrote a monthly column called Living Consciously. She's been an annual contributor to the Science of Mind magazine guides, and she currently is writing a book which will be coming out this year, 2016. Write it down. She also, if you have this month's Science of Mind magazine, has a wonderful article on breaking free, which she'll speak to today. So she has served in so many ways. In addition to in her centers, she's also served our larger community. She currently is the chairperson of the Strategic Events Planning Committee and co-chair of the upcoming Spiritual Living Convention that will take place right here in Salt Lake City in February. So I'm just so delighted to present to you my dear friend, my prayer partner, Reverend Sally Robbins.
Wow. We have seen each other through a lot of blah, blah, blah. And I know the caliber of the minister that you have here is so exceptional. And I feel very blessed that he has invited me to be on your stage this morning, because we're going to talk about breaking free. I know you've been talking about that theme for this month. So I'd like you to turn to your neighbor and say, are you ready to break free? And now turn back to your neighbor and say, I am ready to break free. Now, you've just stated your intention to the universe, right? And we know that when we vocalize that which we are wanting to bring into our life, that is sending out a message to the universe. And the universe is now rushing to fill that void of what you have created and says yes, and is making a way for that to happen. And so your intentionality is really critical here, because we're talking about, what do I do to break free from all the limiting blah, blah, blah in my life? So I'm going to do a little something different this morning. I do this every now and then. It's just a little fun thing that I do to bring the audience further into our talk today. So I'm going to be throwing out some pieces of paper. I've got 6 of them here. And if you get one of these, it is by divine appointment, because, trust me, I don't throw very well. It's just going to land where it lands. And when you get it, open it up, and there's a number on it along with something to say. So when I call on you, I'll ask you to share that with the group. So are you ready? We're going to have a little fun with this. Going to throw, oh, excellent catch. Let's throw some over here. All right. This is, nothing is random in this universe, right? If someone would like to walk up and get one, I'll give you one if I don't run out first. Okay, let me see. How about underhanded? I'm not. So those who are sitting in the front are going to be getting a whole lot more today. Okay. All right. So who has number 1? Would you please stand and share it with us? What you think of me is none of my business. Yes, we can say an amen to that, can't we? You may recall that wonderful phrase from the wonderful Reverend Terry Cole Whitaker, who wrote a book by the same name. It was one of the first books I read in New Thought. And the whole idea behind that is, don't we get caught up in what other people think of us sometimes? Am I the only one in this room that ever does that? So we get caught in this web, this intricate web of what someone else thinks of us, feels about us, and then we take that on as a truth, which we know is absolutely not the truth. So I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. This gentleman's name is Leo Wright. He is also known as Arizona Department of Corrections prisoner 117202. And I got to know, almost said Reverend Leo, because that's what he wants to do. He wants to become a religious science minister. But Leo is serving in the Arizona State Department of Corrections for armed robbery. He's made some pretty bad choices in his life. I interviewed him for this article. Here's a shameless plug. There's a few copies left out there. For only $3.95, you too can have your copy. And there's a whole article in here about Leo and another prisoner that I interviewed for this. It's an inspirational story of how these men have turned their lives around. But what really struck me when Leo was telling me his story was that he was dealt a really raw deal when he was a child. He grew up in Compton, which is in Los Angeles, not a very affluent section of town. He did not have much at all. As a matter of fact, he had no father. His mother was raising him and his siblings. And his mother decided at some point when he was very young that she could actually make money if she'd figured out the Social Security system, and she said, you know what, if these children are labeled as developmentally disabled, I will get money for them. So she taught her children to think that they were stupid. And she actually said to them, you're stupid. And she taught them how to answer questions when the state authorities interviewed them. Can you imagine? This woman was in such pain herself and so desperate to support her family that this was the only way she could think of. And so Leo learned at a very young age, I'm stupid. That's what his mother taught him. And think about it. Children don't have the adult mind to process that she's doing it for another reason. And so he grew up, because he was told he was stupid, he did not do well in school at all. He had a tough time in school. And because of that, he dropped out of high school. He just was getting in and out of trouble, was making some bad choices, running with the wrong crowd. He became a leader of a gang and then eventually was incarcerated. And so he was really tied up in this idea, I'm stupid. What broke him free from this is when he was in jail. It took jail for him to figure this out, that he decided to go for his GED while he was there. And he said, you know what, I may as well, I'm in here. He aced the GED. He was like, really, he said, I'm smart. I'm really smart. And he figured out that he had been told a lie that he had believed for all of his life up to that moment. And in that break-free moment, he became somebody different. Because all it took, as we teach here, is a new thought, right? That you have an old thought that no longer serves you, and you think a new thought, and your life can change. And so Leo is a wonderful example of how we can move further along in our life if we simply give up an old idea and break free from whatever the limitations that idea has brought us. You know, I take inspiration from so many places. And the wonderful metaphysicians, the rock group called the Eagles, they have a song called, Yeah, Already Gone. And in that song they say, so oftentimes it happens. We live our lives in chains, and we never even know we have the key. Isn't that the truth? Can I get an amen? And so each time we recognize that we have bought into a really old, a really abusive idea in many of our cases, it's time to let it go. It's time to break free and step into the newness. Leo invited in the idea that he was smart. He was really capable. And for the first time in his life, he started making much better decisions because of that. So who's got number 2? Number 2. There you are. Say it out loud, please. Lighten up. Lighten up. Because you see, I believe in the 11th commandment, as does Reverend Marty. Thou shalt lighten up. Sometimes spirituality can become so, and we've got to lighten ourselves up to the point where we understand that we're here to laugh and smile and be happy and joyous. Amen. Thank you, sister. Preach. And so each one of us has the opportunity to really step into a much higher level, because think about it, what's the vibration of worry and struggle? Step into the vibration of joy and happiness, much higher. And so lightening up is really part of our way of breaking free from something else that is not serving us again anymore. I want you to meet another wonderful friend of mine, Reverend Karen Weingard. I was sitting in the dining hall at Asilomar, which is where we have our national conference on the summers. We used to have them there. And so there's 500 or so people in this dining hall. And all of a sudden I hear a commotion at the front door. And I turned and looked over there. There was a group of people coming in, and right in front of them was this wonderful woman. Now she was wearing a feather boa, feathers in her hair, glitter on her face, beautiful makeup to the max. She was wearing a mini skirt and go-go boots. And I turned to my lunch companion and said, "Who is that?" And she said, "Oh, that's Reverend Karen Weingard. She's in Los Angeles. She's now in Palm Springs, Palm Desert." And so I got to meet her a little bit later in the conference. What a joy this woman is. She told me her story, which was very compelling. She told me that, this is not her dressing up. This is how she normally looks. She's always dressed up like this. She said that she was living in New York at one time, and she got on a bus to go to some place, and somebody on the bus said, "Are you going to a party?" And she said, "I am the party. I am the party." And she named that one of the books that she's written, I Am the Party. And I love that concept because she decided that she was going to be the party of her life. And I think of that often because too many times I don't think of my life as a party. I get caught up in the day-to-day, don't you? And when I remind myself, oh my goodness, I am the party, I get such a lightness out of that. And I let go of the limiting ideas that I've taken on for that moment. Reverend Karen is a wonderful role model for us. She has dedicated her life to breaking free of limiting stereotypes. She studied with Ram Dass, and then she finally found her way to Agape, which is our church in the LA area. She took many classes, became a practitioner, and then at age 60 decided she wanted to become a minister. She was not going to let chronological age get in the way of her going after what she was here to do. So she became a minister. And so I have a question for you. Are you a party? Are you a party? Do you light up the room when you come in? Yes. Do I hear a few yeses? Yes. Because that is what we are here to do. I love that song that you sang, I am the candle. Take your candle and light your world, as only you can. You have the gift to light up your world, if we just remember that, and to break free from that. You know, I have a flock of birds that populate a tree right outside of my condo where I live in Phoenix. And every sunrise and every sunset, those birds come back to that tree and they sing. They sing to start the new day, and they sing when the sun is setting. Not once does one of them fly back after having their day out doing whatever birds do, and fly back to that tree and go, you know, I've had a bad day. I'm not singing today. Not once. They show up because that's what they do. They are the party. And their expression of being that party in this world is singing. And what a wonderful reminder to me that even no matter what kind of day I have, I can still show up and sing in my own unique way. And so you and I have that wonderful birthing that is happening always within us to gift the world with whatever we are here to be and do. That is our way of lightening up and breaking free from whatever might be dragging us and our world around us down. Ernest Holmes had a wonderful way of saying this. He says, within us is the unborn possibility of limitless experience. Ours is the privilege of giving birth to it. You and I are constantly being downloaded with these wonderful ideas and ways of being in this world. And it's our privilege to birth that into the world. I once read something that said you have 90 seconds from the time an idea is downloaded into you to act upon it. And if you miss that 90-second window, it's gone. Have you ever had an idea and go, oh, that's a great idea, I'll remember that, and you don't? We are being given divine inspiration in so many wonderful ways each and every day. Are we listening and then showing up and doing that? So who has number 3? Yes. The only true law is that which leads to freedom. Wonderful, wonderful words. And so when we find out that all we're really here to do is to be free, what a wonderful freeing idea that is. You know, Alan Cohen, another one of my spiritual guides along the way, has this to say. He says there are 2 ways to master your spiritual path. Number 1, do what brings you life. Number 2, quit doing what deadens you. Isn't that beautifully brilliant? It's simple. It's not easy to do, though, is it? And so when we find something that is no longer bringing us life, we get to let that go. We get to break free from that. And we get to truly only choose that which brings us joy. Joy is our compass here. That's what we're here to do. It's time to break free from the idea that we're here to make a living. We're here to make a life. There is a big difference, would you agree? A huge difference in that. One of my all-time favorite books, many of you have loved it as well, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, published in 1973. I think I've read it at least once a year ever since then because it's one of those classics you can go back to and get so much out of. And it's the whole idea, for those of you that have not read it, it's the idea this Jonathan Livingston Seagull finds that he is free to go way higher than the rest of the flock. And he becomes an outcast for doing so. But slowly, others start catching on to what he's doing. So on page 82, it says, it was a month after the return that the first gull of the flock crossed the line and asked to learn how to fly. In his asking, Terence Lowell Gull became a condemned bird, labeled outcast, and the 8th of Jonathan's students. The next night, from the flock, came Kirk Maynard Gull, wobbling across the sand, dragging his left wing to collapse at Jonathan's feet. "Help me," he said very quietly, speaking in the way that the dying speak. "I want to fly more than anything in this world." "Come along then," said Jonathan. "Climb with me away from the ground, and away we'll go." "You don't understand. My wing. I can't move my wing." "Maynard Gull, you have the freedom to be yourself, your true self, here and now, and nothing can stand in your way. It is the law of the great gull, the only law that is. Are you saying that I can fly? I say that you are free. As simply and as quickly as that, Kirk Maynard Gull spread his wings effortlessly and lifted into the dark night air. The flock was roused from sleep by his cry, as loud as he could scream it, from 500 feet up. I can fly! Listen, I can fly! By sunrise, there were nearly 1,000 birds standing outside the circle of students, looking curiously at Maynard. They didn't care whether they were seen or not, and they listened, trying to understand Jonathan Seagull. He spoke of very simple things, that it is right for a gull to fly, that freedom is the very nature of his being, that whatever stands against that freedom must be set aside, be it ritual or superstition or limitation in any form. Set aside, came a voice from the multitude, even if it be the law of the flock. The only true law, Jonathan said, is that which leads to freedom. There is no other. How do you expect us to fly as you fly? Came another voice. You are special and gifted and divine above other birds. Look at Fletcher, Jonathan said. Look at Lowell, Charles Rowland, Judy Lee. Are they also special and gifted and divine? No more than you are, and no more than I am. The only difference, the very only one, is that they have begun to understand what they really are and have begun to practice it. That last line there is so powerful. The only difference, the very only one, is that they have begun to understand what they really are and have begun to practice it. That's really what this community is all about, isn't it? It's a chance for us to come together with like-minded people, to remember who we are, and then to practice it. I could read books all day long. It doesn't matter a Twitter if I don't. A Twitter? It doesn't matter at all if I don't practice it. You see, we can understand a lot of things, can we not? We can understand principles, but we do not embody them until we do them. It's so easy to talk about unconditional love. It's far harder to practice it. And so you and I understand that the only true law there is freedom, the freedom to choose yet again and again and again. You and I have that wonderful capability to not only practice, but to really embody what we're here to be. That's our lifelong mission, isn't it? Our lifelong mission is to embody that which we are. Where am I? Oh man, I'm just like, whoo! I'm off on great things here. So, somewhere along the line, some of us bought into the idea that we have broken wings, just like Maynard. We brought into that idea that something in us was broken. And the truth is, the truth that I will say to you again and again and again, as will Reverend Marty, as will every practitioner here, and everyone steeped in truth. Love, love, love. You are love. You are not broken. And so when we get to that place of understanding, our lives open up as miracles. When it's a miracle really is an everyday happening. Oh, how usual that they're occurring, because that's what we're really here meant to do, is live a life of unlimited possibility. Another friend of mine, Dr. David Alt, is the senior minister of the Atlanta church. And there he is. And Dr. David is a remarkable man. He read this wonderful book called 3 Cups of Tea. You might have read it, by Greg Mortensen. And he was so inspired by this author who had built a school for children in Pakistan. So Dr. David was really inspired to go out and be an instrument for God himself. So he went to Cambodia, and he started a nonprofit called the Khmer Child Foundation after he saw the children in these rural areas who had nothing. He decided that he would be the one that they were waiting for. He would be the one, not waiting for someone else to show up. He was going to be the vessel of good, the instrument of God in that area. So he started raising funds, and he's traveled to Cambodia every year since 2009. He's built a school which serves over 200 children. He built 2 outdoor pavilions. He dug 23 freshwater wells, and fresh water is life to these people. And he committed to digging at least a dozen more wells every year he went. Talk about a man on a mission. And when it was released a while back that maybe Greg Mortensen hadn't really factually done the things that he said that he'd done in this book, there was a big to-do about this. Dr. David sent an email out to our ministers' listserv, and he said, it doesn't really matter whether he did them or not. It inspired me to go out and do the good that I'm doing. And so I'm here to be that instrument. Doesn't matter what's going on in the rest. That's blah, blah, blah. I'm here to be love, love, love. What a wonderful message for us to take into that. Because sometimes we get grime over the inspiration that comes to us, and we feel like we have to peel it away. It doesn't matter. What is speaking to us in our hearts? What is Spirit calling us to do? That's really the only voice we need to listen to. Dr. David Alt is a fabulous instrument, and he is committed to the good in that part of the world. Who's got number 4? Wonderful. Share it with us, please. God loves the world by means of me. Now, I want you to know that each of you that got one of these messages, that is not a random thing. I've had people, when I've done this before, who've taken it up and pasted it on their wall so they could see it. Because doesn't Spirit speak to us at all times, in all ways? And so you don't have to return these papers to me. This is yours to keep afterwards. And God is how does it say? God loves the world by means of me. We think that sometimes we forget that we are here to be that instrument of love. We are the hands, the hearts, the mouths, the eyes, the ears of love. My chiropractor was visiting him recently, and I many times will wear the necklace that I have that is the creative process. Those of you that have taken classes, you've seen this. That's the symbol that we have for the creative process of what happens when we treat. And so my chiropractor had seen me wearing this. So he says to me, "What is that thing that you wear all the time? Is that a V for victory?" And I said, no. And it's kind of hard to explain someone who's not in science of mind, but I said, no, that is a symbol for our process of moving from spirit to man and back up to spirit. And so at the top of the V, which you learn in the classes we teach here, is we're all coming from spirit. We descend into matter, form, this world here, the material world, and then we're always ascending back up. So we're always descending or ascending back to spirit. Now, unfortunately, many times in my life, I've camped out down at the V. Anybody else here? I've pitched a tent and camped out. And I get stuck in the world of form because I forget that I am God. I forget that spirit is the essence of who I am. And so this is a wonderful reminder to us that we are constantly breaking free from the density of this material world to move back into spirit form. Are you with me? You and I have the capability each and every day to remember the essence of who we are. It's called the mystical marriage, and this is how the New Thought Dictionary defines it. Conscious union of the individual I with the universal I am. The conscious at one-ment with the source of being, God, a consciousness of the unity of all life, the joining of the great self, the God in man, with the little self of the limited human consciousness. So we're always descending from spirit and ascending back into spirit. Our individual expression of God is who we are. So, Gandhi reminds us of this. He says, find yourself by serving others. We find that service here, especially in a community like this, it's a spiritual practice, is it not? It's our chance not only to give back, but to serve at a very high level. And everyone that I've ever talked to that has done some level of service has gotten way more out of it than they've given. And I know when I give back at the national level, I'm co-chair of this upcoming conference. It's like having another part-time job, but I give it with love because that's part of my gift back to our larger denomination, to our community at large, and it's a gift to me. I get to practice these principles, and I get to be in consciousness and conscious givingness with other individuals. So find yourself by serving others. We show up as God. So who has number 5? Yes. It's time to let go of the inner judge. That resonates with a few people here. Anybody got someone in them that goes, you're not good enough. Who do you think you are? And to break free means letting go of that fearful place that says, you're not enough. You're not lovable. Whatever the message might be, it's time to let go of that. Leo, the prisoner that I've been speaking about, said that he used to lead through fear. When you're a gang leader, you have to have people afraid of you, right? That's how you lead. He said he was shocked and amazed because one day he was in a really tough circumstance. He had been trying with his lawyer to get parole. He was denied parole. He was very angry about that. He said, I wanted to kill everybody. I was so mad. He went into the legal library at the jail. This is in Arizona. And he said, he went there thinking, I'm going to find a way to, a legal solution to this. What he ended up finding, though, was a Science of Mind textbook by Ernest Holmes. Nobody knows how it got there. Doesn't matter how it got there. But that's what he found. He read it from cover to cover. And he started to change in that moment to go, I'm not here to make people fearful of me. I'm here to love people. He actually had moved in, and when he came into the prison, he had become a leader, a gang leader in the prison gang. Yes, there are gangs in the prison too. And they almost killed him when he tried to get out of that gang. But he had the courage to say, this isn't for me anymore. I'm going to break free from the idea that I have to intimidate and spread fear. And he said, it's amazing right now because people come up to me and say, why are you so happy? And he said, I'm leading with love now. It's such a different feeling, and it's such a better place for me to live. He said, I always was comparing and compassionate, but I couldn't show that in my previous life because that was death as a gang leader. And so now he gets to show the real Leo and show up. Hafiz, the wonderful Persian mystic, has this to say. The small man builds cages for everyone he knows, while the sage, who has to duck his head when the moon is low, keeps dropping keys all night for the beautiful, rowdy prisoners. Maybe you're like me. There are people in my life who I have not had pleasant experiences with. Let's put it that way. And I have put them in small cages. And I have locked them away. And that's what Hafiz is referring to here. It's time for us to unlock those doors and the prisons of our mind and let those people go. Because whether or not those people were intentionally doing anything, they were only doing the very best they could do. Only doing the best they could do. And so you and I have the capability to unlock that key because who are we really unlocking? Ourselves. We're the only ones that we can lock away. We're the only ones that can unlock that. Who's got number 6? Yes. I am a modern mystic without walls. Ooh. And yes, you are. You know, it was Marcia Sinitar, who has written some wonderful books, who actually started to coin that phrase about modern mystics. And she said mystics used to be the ones that went into cloistered experiences. They lived in a cloister, they lived in a monastery, and they had people who took care of them, and they didn't have to worry about making a living. They just were spiritual. They prayed, they meditated. Nowadays, though, mystics in this world, we get to do the praying and meditating, but we also have a life. We have jobs, we have responsibilities with families, children to raise, grandchildren, whatever your life experience might be at the moment. But we still have the opportunity to be a mystic without walls, to be a mystic while doing life. That's the challenge, isn't it? Because life can pull us back down to that level of form, and it's our job to keep raising ourselves to that vibration of the mystic. I am a modern mystic without walls. Ernest Holmes had this to say, the greats are great to us only because we are on our knees. Let us arise. We're not here to be on our knees. We're not here to think we're broken. We're here to rise to a level of greatness we've never experienced before. Remember Reverend Karen? She has an incredible story that I'm going to share some of that with you right now. to further what I've told you already before. She got her ministerial license, and because she lived in Los Angeles, she met a man and fell in love and got married in 1975 to this gentleman, Norman Fell, Mr. Roper on Three's Company. They married in 1975. They were married for 20 years. And she had already had children by a previous husband. And because she was in her 40s, she was having trouble conceiving, and they really wanted children. So they decided to adopt. And so they went through all the agencies, and they finally were cleared, and the agency said, "We have a baby for you." And they were so excited. It was flown in from Kansas, and they got the baby at the airport. They were so excited to see this little baby boy that was a bundle of just love. They couldn't wait to just love this little baby boy. Well, it wasn't long after that, though, that they found that Casey, they named him Casey, had some severe physical challenges. Being brand new born, they didn't know this, but as they had him for a month or 2 or 3, they realized that Casey was not developing like most babies. And Casey was eventually diagnosed with cerebral palsy. And he could not talk. He couldn't walk. He had trouble breathing sometimes. He had seizures. He had some serious challenges in front of him. So Norman, because Norman was only able to, remember I talked about you only rise to the level that you're capable of, Norman said to Karen, "Well, you should give him back. You didn't give birth to him." And she said, "I'm not giving him back. He's my son. I'm not giving him back." And so she committed right then and there to love him and love Casey just the way he was. She said she would feed him macrobiotic food, and she was trying to do everything she could to help her child. She said, I even danced around the crib with these Indian dances because I thought that would like bring the chi up. And she was so, really trying to love and nurture him, even though he couldn't speak or really respond in the ways that most children do. She said most parents have indicators along the way, like their child gets straight A's or they make the Little League team. She said, I didn't have any of that. But when you looked in Casey's eyes, he was pure love. And I saw that in him. I saw the pure love. And so they didn't think that Casey, the doctors told her that Casey would not live beyond 2 years. Well, guess what? Casey lived beyond 2 years. She kept caring for him, even though it took a lot of extra work. And so at 12, he started having severe seizures, where they thought, again, he was going to die. So they had intubated him, and they had him on a breathing apparatus. And the doctor said, it's time. It's time that we let him go because he can't survive like this any longer. And Karen said to herself, if Casey's going to go, it's not going to be because of the doctor's time. It's going to be because he's on God's time. So every day she would lean into Casey as she loved on him, and she would whisper into his ear, "You are love. You are love. You are love." And that day, when the doctors decided that they had to take the breathing apparatus off of him, she leaned down again and said, "You are love. You are love." So they unplugged the plug. They took the tube out. She said he turned blue because he was struggling, but then all of a sudden he started breathing on his own and has been breathing ever since. Last June, he celebrated his 29th birthday. And so Casey has been a miracle in itself. She now has him living in a home with 4 other developmentally disabled adults because she can't lift him, she can't do a lot of the daily things, but she brings him to church. She said that one Mother's Day, her mother called her and said, "We're going to the club for Mother's Day, but we don't want you to bring Casey." And Karen, when she was telling me the story, said, "In that moment I knew that my mother was the one who was developmentally disabled." And she said to her mother, "Okay, that's all right, but I'm going to be with Casey today, and you and I will celebrate Mother's Day some other time." So she put her son in his wheelchair, brought him into church, brought him up on stage, and she said to the congregation, "I'd like each of you to come up and to look in Casey's eyes and to see the love that he is." And each person came up, and there were many, many tears because people got to experience Casey for who he really was. And so at some point, after 20 years of marriage to Norman, Karen said that Norman said to her, "This is too much. It's either me or it's going to be Casey." And Karen said it wasn't even a challenge. It was going to be Casey. And so Norman divorced her. But even in that moment, can you imagine the heartbreak that must have been for Karen? She said, "I've always loved him." And when he developed cancer just a few years later, she took care of him. She went over and nurtured him, and he died in her arms with her telling him that she loved him. Now that, to me, is a modern mystic. That is someone who is living these principles. Talk about embodying. Because Norman just wasn't skilled enough to love at that level. But Karen was. And you and I meet people all the time that are not skilled in some way, do we not? They're not skilled at love. They're not skilled at even communication sometimes. And yet it's incumbent upon us to live to our highest ideal, no matter what is coming into our world. Are you with me on that? Karen is a wonderful reminder to me of how we can truly embody the love and kindness no matter what is happening in our world. I'll close with a quote from Authority of the Soul by Ernest Holmes. "Dare to say, great people have come and gone, and behold, a greater now stands here where I stand, and I am that one. You are now free, and your freedom will yet save the world from itself. The great soul finds within itself the divine companionship that we need. We find within ourselves the peace that passeth all understanding, and the power to do all things, all power. We speak, our word is law, and it is done unto us by all the power there is." That's what we teach. That's, more importantly, what we live. And when you come into community here, you are supporting this community that says yes to a greater idea, not of just you, but of all of us. It's that important that you are a part of this wonderful community that says yes to that greater idea of embodying these wonderful principles. This is so much bigger than we are, isn't it? So much bigger than we are. And your contribution here in time, talent, treasure is your way of saying yes to that greater idea. Let's take that within. Let's take a deep breath in. And as we let it out, we let go of whatever limiting ideas we might have brought in the door with us today. Those of us who have thought we are broken somehow, we just banish that thought back into the nothingness from which it came. We absolutely turn to that place within us that says, we are perfect, we are whole, we are complete right now, in this moment. I know that there are those here today who may be struggling with some sort of challenge. I know that we can also turn within and know that we are above that challenge as well. That there is something within us that knows the answer. There is something within us that has the idea to break free from whatever limited belief we might be struggling with. And so I know that each one of us is now lifting the consciousness in this room by saying yes to the greater idea of who I am and who you are and who we all are. We say yes, right here and right now. And anything that is unlike that yes is now just obliterated. We let it go. We break free. And we step into the true freedom, knowing that we are laws unto ourselves and only we can determine what that law says. We know we are love. We know we are power. We know we are joy. And so we live in this moment right now in that freedom that says, that is what I am. That is who I am. And that is how I show up, because I am the party. I am here to be the light of the world. Oh, it is so good to step into that flow of life. It is always carrying us and supporting us and saying yes to this greater desire for our highest good. So I bless this time together this morning. I bless each and every individual here who has said yes in some form or another to this center, to Reverend Marty, to the highest ideal of who we all are. I let it be so. And together we say, and so it is.